So we're going to look at the epidermis. It's avascular, means it doesn't have a blood supply. It's made of stratified squamous epithelium. And you can see here we've got a diagram, and that little blue box is then magnified 145 times, and then you've got the stratum corneum right over on the right hand side of the diagram, which has been magnified a further 154 times. So you can see that we're looking at very small structures of the skin, and because the epidermis doesn't have any blood supply, nutrients and oxygen have to diffuse from the capillaries in the dermis upwards. There are 4 distinct types of cells when we look at the epidermis. The first one is the keratinocytes, which are tightly connected to each other by the dermisomes, and they produce keratin, a fibrous protein. Then you've got the melanocytes, and they have numerous branching processes, and they touch all of the keratinocytes in the basal layer, and they produce melanin, which is the pigment which protects us against ultraviolet radiation, and that is transferred by nearby keratinocytes. You then have dendrocytes, and they're called the Langerhans cells and the Grandstein cells by the people who discovered them. And they interact with lymphocytes, the T cells, and they assist in the immune response. And they're macrophages. Then you've got the Merkel cells, which are associated with sensory nerves, and the ends of them are called Merkel discs, and they are distributed right through the skin surface for us to be able to feel touch and pressure. But as I said before, that the epidermis is not vascularized, and it receives nutrients by diffusion. There are 2 types of skin. The thin skin covers most of the body, and it has 4 layers of keratinocytes. Then you have the thick skin, which is on the hands and the soles of the feet, and that has 5 layers of keratinocytes. So here we have a micrograph of the thin skin. You can see we've got the strata corneum and the basement membrane, and then the dermis. And here is a micrograph of the thick skin, which covers the palms and the soles of the feet. And you can see here that the stratum corneum layer is far thicker. So this is another form of protection. So before shoes, we were walking around barefooted. And of course, we use our hands to pick up things, and we wouldn't want our hands to be damaged, so they're thicker. So the structures of the epidermis, the 5 strata layers of the keratinocytes, oh, I can't say that very easily, can I? Keratinocytes, got it. In thick skin, they've got 5 layers, and we're going to look at those now. So you've got the stratum basale, the stratum spinosum, the stratum granulosum, the stratum lucidum, and the stratum corneum. So that is the outermost layer, and that is shed every day. So the person, when you take off your shoes and socks in the morning, and when you take off your the clothing that is fitting you most, and if you've got the sunlight and you give them a shake, you will see bits of dry skin floating away in the air. So we shed our skin every day. But this is important to note, that if you're looking after a person who has paralyzed limbs and they're not walking around and they're not moving their limbs, then of course that shedding process is going to be minimized significantly, and they will get a build-up of stratum corneum cells. So you can see at the top of this micrograph that you've got the stratum corneum starting to peel away, and then you've got the stratum lucidum, next layer, the stratum granulosum, the stratum spinosum, the stratum basale, the basement membrane, and then you've got the dermis. So the epidermis is on top of the dermis. So just going through those layers, we've got the stratum basale attached to the basement membrane by the hemidermisomes, and it provides a strong bond between the dermis and the epidermis. However, in emergency, you will see people coming in with trauma injuries, and some of that trauma injuries, if their skin has been exposed to significant friction, then they have what is called a degloving injury, where the dermis and the epidermis have actually split, and that's a significant injury. You've got the epidermal ridges, which form the fingerprints, and you've got the dermal papillae, which are the tiny mounds. And they also increase the area of basement membrane. And it has many cells, where the cells are actually dividing and moving upwards. So whilst in profile and on the micrograph it looks like a static system, the cells are all moving towards the stratum corneum to be shed and being renewed down at the basal cells. So here are our fingerprints. We know that each human has distinct fingerprints. So in forensic science, people's fingerprints help identify them, that they were in fact at the presence of, they were in fact at a crime scene. It's important, if you are nursing in emergency, if anyone comes in with that may have been involved in a crime, that you become part of that forensic chain of evidence, and you will need to collect evidence. But so people nurses who are working in emergency, some of them are particularly interested in forensic nursing, and at Flinders University we also have a forensic science course which is partnered up with Johns Hopkins University. So it's a forensic nursing course, not a forensic science course. You can see here in this thick skin that we're looking at pores of sweat ducts and the epidermal ridges. Specialized cells of the stratum basale, we've got the Merkel cells that are found on hairless skin and respond to touch and trigger the nervous system. Then you've got the melanocytes, as we've spoken before, that contain the pigment melanin, and they're scattered through also the stratum basale. The stratum spinosum is the spiny layer, and it's produced by a division of the stratum basale. So they're all moving up towards being shedded by this at the stratum corneum. So it takes 8 to 10 layers of the keratinocytes bound by the dermisomes, and the cells shrink until the cytoskeletons stick out and they're spiny, and they continue to divide, increasing in the thickness of the epithelium. And they contain those dendritic cells, the Langerhans cells, which are active in the immune response and help in the synthesis of vitamin D. The stratum granulosum is the grainy layer, and that stops dividing and starts producing keratin, which helps make up hairs and nails. And then you've also got keratohyalin, which is dense granules, and they cross-link with the keratin fibers, again providing more support. The cells of the stratum granulosum produce protein fibers, then they dehydrate and die, and they're tightly interlocked layers of keratin surrounded by the keratinohyalin. The stratum luteum is the clear layer, luteum meaning that it's light and you can see through it. It's found only in thick skin, and it covers the stratum granulosum. The stratum corneum is the thorny layer, and this is the outside layer, exposed skin, and it's 15 to 30 layers of keratinized cells. It's water resistant, but it will actually absorb water, and it's replaced about every 2 weeks in a person who's moving around. So the water resistance means, you know, when you go and stay in water for an length of time, you get those sort of wrinkles on your fingertips and your feet. Well, those wrinkles are actually caused by the skin actually absorbing water.